Isaac says, Grant, you had said that Kittle is being primarily used to block decoy. How can he underperform when he's not being asked to perform? Is he just not getting open when he's asked to play that role? Okay, we can talk about it. George Kittle's quiet camp. Here's why I mentioned it. I'm not saying that this means he's going to have 20 catches this year. I just mentioned it that this is 5th year on the team. It's his 5th camp. I've seen all of them. The other 4, even his rookie year, he was heavily targeted and used in practices just as he was in games. There were days as a rookie where he'd get 5 catches in a day. Be like, this 5th round pick is getting prepped for a real role. This year it's like, man, he's getting the Kyle Juszczyk treatment. And we all know that Juszczyk plays as a critical part of the offense. But I'm just not used to like going a whole day and being like, yo, was Kittle there? Oh, yeah, no, he was there. I saw him. He was there. I saw him. That's just so weird. So I'm trying to think, like, is it just a fluke and is he going to get some targets later? Or are the Niners kind of trying to adjust something about the way they handle him, the way they use him? What do you think?
Well, if you make a big enough deal about it over the next couple of days, I guarantee you he'll have like 8 targets in next practice.
Good.
But no, I don't think it's really a big deal. I think it's something like it's an observation, right? You're not saying there's anything to it. You're just observing that it's different to not see George Kittle being a main part of 49ers training camp in terms of as a receiving threat. Now, maybe it just so happens they want to get Ayuk and Debo as many reps as possible. They want to get Mo Sanu or whoever more reps. I don't know. I'm not there, so I don't want to comment on that in specific. But all I want to say is I don't think it's a big deal, but I do think it is an observation. Like it's not a bad thing if Grant points this out. It's actually just okay, pretty cool. George Kittle isn't getting a lot of targets. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind. And now if you go to week 6 and George Kittle has a career low in targets through 6 games, now it becomes a topic of conversation. If you go to week 6 and George Kittle is once again leading the team in targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns, then who cares?
I'm just saying if you're a fantasy football player and you're counting on George Kittle to get you 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, you might want to think twice. Because from what I'm seeing, the guys who are getting prepped for big-time usage roles are Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and everyone else after that, I haven't seen it yet. Now, of course, Kittle has an entire career to fall back on, but I think it's fair to say that he's another one they got to worry about with injuries. And his injuries came last year as a receiver. Even though he's paid to be a receiver, he got hurt catching the pass with his knee. Not catching the passes. He got a knee injury catching the pass from Jimmy, and then he broke his foot catching the pass from Nick Mullins. Maybe they say, you know what? Instead of asking him to catch 80 balls, maybe we'll ask him to catch 55 because that'll keep him healthy, and he's even more important as a blocker, and we need him for 17 games. That could be going on.
So, yeah, and I wanted to just expand on it even more, like this idea that, they might not be featuring purposefully. My perception from afar has always been that players like George Kittle, even if they don't go out of their way to feature, he'll just end up somehow being part of the day, like on defense, you see this all the time. Like, I don't think they're going out of their way to, feature a Fred Warner on defense or a Jason Verrett or a Jimmy Ward. They're just doing their normal stuff, but they just happen to somehow be a footnote, even though at this point they're so established. Like, you're just hoping that they're their consistent self in camp. You don't really care if they're having like a 3 forced fumble, 2 interception day or locking up every rep in one-on-ones because you know who they are, right? You're more interested in the people that have a little more intrigue, like the rookies or the guys they signed that you haven't seen before and all of that. And that's where I think it's surprising because I would at least expect, George Kittle, another fine day, 3 catches, caught everything that came to him and stuff. So
or
I just think
even if it was just 1 catch, it was a hell of a catch. And that's what it was day 1. He caught that long pass from Lance.
Right.
The video Kittle showed up. That's since that catch, he's had 1 catch in the flat, and that's it. He's had a few targets that haven't been complete, not necessarily his fault, but that's his camp. Kind of
interesting. And then I'll make one more argument for him, maybe. Just looking at the Niners defense. I mean, obviously there's no excuse. I don't know what concepts they're running, how they're trying to get the ball to George Kittle, all of that. I'll see that week 1, week 2, week 3. But So I don't know, but looking at the Niners defense and looking at who's starting at corner and all of that, I guess it makes sense to throw the ball heavily to Debo and Ayuk, just because Fred Warner and Jimmy Ward are amongst the middle of the defense, and on the outside you do have Tim Harris
One
Jr.
more
and Dante
statistical
Johnson.
anomaly that'll just make your head explode, though. Dwelly, 6 catches in camp. Kittle, 2. I mean, this has never happened before. Dwelly would be the kind of guy who would look good in one-on-ones, but get like 3 catches in camp. And then I'd say I like Dwelly, and everyone in the beat court would be like, based on what? Like, well, you didn't watch one-on-ones. Like, no, today he had 2 catches downfield, got another target. He had 2 more targets in the end. Like, he's all over the place. He's getting Kittle's targets this year. It's in camp.
Really?
In camp. He's getting like 4 or 5 targets a day. He got 4 targets today.
Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, all I gotta say is, Grant, if next practice you ask Kyle Shanahan, why is George Kittle just not catching the ball in training camp, he'll give you some answer about how the reps are distributed, all of that, this, and then the next practice, George Kittle will have 10 catches. Yeah.
Boom. All right, I'll give it a shot. Let's do a little experiment. Seth says, Grant, how do you feel about Kinlaw calling you out? Did he? I asked him today if he takes his dogs hunting, and he laughed. Me and Kinlaw have a little rapport. Unless he did call me out and he doesn't like me. I don't know. Hester says, sorry if this was brought up already, but if Bosa's girlfriend is trending for racist and homophobic tweets, hopefully it doesn't affect him. Well, I didn't expect that sentence to go there.
I'm not worried about the effect on him, honestly. I'm more worried about the fact that she tweeted those things out. That was messed up.
I'm worried. I wonder what the locker room will think if he sticks. Anyway, something to think about. PJ says, Grant, do you think they will trade Jimmy sooner than later for the simple fact that Rosen can get more reps? Rosen can be a viable backup. Interesting question. Don't know. I just want to say real quick, I asked Kyle Shanahan about Sudfeld and Rosen. I asked 2 questions today. The other one was about Sudfeld and Rosen, just what he thought. And he said, it's so unfair. They don't get any reps. They get like 2 throws a day. Can't judge them on that. Really looking forward to seeing them in the preseason when they're going to get more playing time. And I was like, how? 3 games, 4 quarterbacks. What's the plan? So maybe Kyle Shanahan has a surprise for us. He did allude to the fact that they're going to get some playing time and meaningful playing time. I'm excited to see that.
I think they might get a half each in the third game.
That'd be great. Would love to see that. Double B Studio says, I think Kyle already knows what Kittle brings to the offense, and he's trying to see more from other. That's all no big. Yeah, possibly. We'll see.
We agree. Yeah, we agree with that. The point is that you just wouldn't expect George Kittle to be zeroed. He would,
Like I've been doing this for 11 years. I remember Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden just dominated every day, no matter what, because he's Anquan Bolden. There wouldn't be like a training camp like, hey, Anquan hasn't really gotten targeted today. Like, no, Anquan had 6 catches. Are you kidding? Anquan freaking Bolden. He would insist on it, and it's like, Vernon Davis was that way. Michael Crabtree was that way, but Kittle used to be that way. Not that way right now. Could be that way tomorrow. We'll see.
Last year, George Kittle, they knew everything about George Kittle, yet George Kittle was still probably unstoppable during training camp, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Dude, he would get a ton of work, but he is one of these guys he had a maintenance day. D Ford didn't have a maintenance day. George Kittle did. I think that's probably more what it is. Like, they need.
So did Samson Ebukam.
Right. Sebastian says, without Jimmy, the Niners wouldn't have to worry about third wide receiver, CB, safety, depth, etc. Jimmy also restricts the type of players, options, deep throws. True. Thank you, Sebastian. We agree. I totally agree.
With that, yeah.
Gammon says, Grant's feelings are hurt because Kittle turned him down for interviews. He's about to receive the McGlinchey treatment this year. I don't think you can give George Kittle the McGlinchey treatment. George Kittle's a great player. I'm giving him a hard time, tongue in cheek. He's great. I love George Kittle. I just think it's kind of funny that they don't throw him the ball anymore. It's not his fault.
I'm just confused why people think that Grant simply observing that Ross Dwelly has more receptions. 6 days into a training camp
that never happened before.
George Kittle, is somehow him hating on George Kittle. Like, not every observation needs to be taken as if
I'm not like, negative. George Kittle's freaking dogging it and he's wasting his money. And he was like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just like, hey, George, I know you watch my show. Why don't you catch some passes?
He's not even questioning Kittle. He's asking why the 49ers haven't featured Kittle.
Yeah, dude. How you going to let him do you like that, George? Come on. Grant, do you think Kittle's quiet camp is more indicative of Debo and Ayuk's development? It's been a while since they had solid wide receivers to throw to. Yeah, man, and they're young, and they haven't gotten paid, and they're hungry, and they got something to prove. Particularly Debo. I think all of it plays into it, and the fact that Ross Dwelly is taking a leap, and he's another guy who's about to get paid. Yeah, all that. Tony says, I've read enough. Trey should be the starter. I do think Jimmy is a good backup quarterback for 2021. I love Bledsoe in 2001. Dude lost a job, got paid $11 million, and won a playoff game when Brady got hurt. That's a good point.
Yeah, the problem with that is they were going with a second-year, sixth-round pick who they probably felt all year they had lightning in the bottle and weren't sure when he was going to turn
That's the
into
difference.
a sixth-round pick from a year ago. And turns out he never did. But the Niners invested everything into Trey Lance. You can't be having any backup plans and stuff now. It's Trey Lance or nothing.
Ominous says, well, to be fair, all of Kittle's problems last year started when Jimmy sailed a bubble screen 3 feet over his head. Hey, man, those kind of things happen when you're catching passes. Not every
Hey, but those kind of things can happen when you're blocking too.
True. Robert Whitaker says, Jimmy prediction week 1, cut, traded, stays with the team, starting or backup. I think they trade him during the preseason.
I think that makes most sense, especially if Trey Lance is quote unquote ready. But I think he ends up starting week 1.
Ooh, I kind of hope
not predicting anything.
I hope he does. I'm hoping he starts week 1.
Why?
For my own personal entertainment. Robert says, thanks for the good and not so good, Grant. Watch those every day. Quick and to the point. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, Robert. That's nice of you.
Also, Kevin White shout out in the good.
That's always
twice now.
Yeah, he seems like a little bit Jason Verrett-ish, like had a really miserable half decade, but slowly has been healthy for about a year, and let's see what he's got. Hester says, I did not mean to make it seem like I didn't care about the social injustice. Obviously, it's messed up. I don't remember what we're referring to, but I appreciate you.
He talked about Nick Bosa's girlfriend's But I'm actually most interested because I feel like, the national people and a lot of people nationally are making a deal out of it, but I haven't seen any local person really even talk about it. And I'm interested to see, because I was surprised this question wasn't asked to Kyle Shanahan earlier, even though it has nothing to do with Shanahan specifically. It's just a question that would be asked. So I'm interested to see how it gets covered, if it just gets downplayed, because I feel like Bosa, since he's come in here, like after the draft, once he came to the 49ers, I feel like everyone was just like, oh, that's just Bosa, and he can be Bosa, and he can be those type things. We're not going to talk about his.
Yeah, but now it's like, ooh, how do you still feel about rooting for this guy? Like, I'm just saying. Anyway, yeah, he's got some thinking to do. Oh, hold on. As always, I'm late. Just starting to listen, but I wanted to get in the chat. We need to see pads on before any decisions. I think Trey needs to start now. The one thing I want to say about the pads, it does make it more like real football, but for offensive and defensive line, really, you still can't touch quarterbacks. So you can't discount the first 5 days of training camp. Really, for Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, when pads go on, aren't going to change a whole lot unless you think it's harder to throw a football with pads on, in which case maybe it is. I don't know. I never did it.
The throwing might change, but it's not going to change what they're doing mentally and how they're seeing the field and everything.
They're not going to get touched. Yeah. If you touch the quarterback, you get cut, fined, and shunned. Marcus says, who is more vital to staying healthy this year on defense, Verrett or Bosa?
Verrett. And I think Bosa is the best player on the 49ers.
Yeah, because he is the corner on the team. Is Elijah Mitchell
one?
You're the only one. Is Elijah Mitchell looking quicker than Mostert? No, Mostert looks really good. They both look good. But let's see Elijah Mitchell average 5 yards a carry for 300 carries before I give him that. Huge fan, Grant. Was curious if you needed a professional videographer for coverage of training camp. Yeah, I'd love one, but Niners won't give me more than one credential right now. So let me get back to you on that. But I respect the hustle and the grind, and the enterprise is the word.